So it's Friday on Bring It In, Troops, little Zoom from Quarantine show. It's Burgundy Shirt Day. And mine's a little off, and David's is way off.
Or light blue.
But
I feel burgundy on the inside.
This is where Judy has a clock and has 90 seconds on it. And we try to be smart over the course of 90 seconds. We each take 3 turns. And Jarod Hector, it's your day, sir. You go first.
So I mentioned this a few weeks back. Bessemer, Alabama is a place where there's a warehouse run by Amazon, and the workers there are working to unionize. And Amazon and our friend, the leader of the capitalist machine, Jeff Bezos, is doing everything humanly possible to stop this from happening. And when you read the accounts of the people who work at this Bessemer, Alabama factory, I mean, it's horrifying. They talk about the increased workload they have, the inability to take bathroom breaks because of how far the bathroom is from their workstations, and they're not meeting their quota numbers, threats of being fired, all of these like horrendous things. Amazon they just went to the Jefferson County county officials and said, hey, I need you to change the pattern of this traffic light outside of our factory, essentially because it was holding too long, and people who were pro-unionizers were out there talking to employees, getting them to want to vote for the union. Like, these are the lengths these people go to stop you from forming a union. They have a firm, Morgan Lewis, who is notorious for being like anti-union, how you get people to stop banding together, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Just think about this. Why would someone as wealthy as Jeff Bezos want to stop people in Bessemer, Alabama from starting a union? By the way, median income in Bessemer, Alabama, household, by the way, not individual, $30,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, so obviously I see everything like a coach, which means when things are happening that are pretty good, I'm already thinking, all right, how is this going to get bad? How are we going to blow this lead? How can we prevent it? I think Henry may be talking about the same article later, but
I picked a different section though.
I know it. I saw. I'm glad. So just a quote from it: "Very, very high case numbers are not a good thing, even if the trend is downward." If they're talking about the virus spread, said Mark Lipsitch, an epidemiologist of the Harvard School of Public Health in Boston. Quote: "Taking the first hint of a downward trend as a reason to reopen is how you get to even higher numbers. Vaccination cannot explain why cases are dropping even in countries where not a single soul has been immunized, like Honduras, Kazakhstan, or Libya. The biggest contributor to the sharp decline in infections is something more mundane, scientists say: behavioral change. Leaders in the United States and elsewhere stepped up community restrictions after the holiday peaks, but individual choices have also been important," said Lindsay Wiley, an expert in public health law and ethics at American U. "People voluntarily change their behavior as they see their local hospitals get hit hard, as they hear about outbreaks in their area," she said. "If that's the reason that things are improving, then that's something that can reverse pretty quickly too. Everybody is tired. Everybody wants things to open up again," Dr. Tweet said. "Bending to political pressure right now, when things are really heading in the right direction, is going to end up costing us in the long term." So I think of I'm past my time. I didn't even hear the thing beep. So it's fourth quarter's not over yet. We're just starting the fourth quarter. Let's keep doing what we've been doing all along. Sorry.
The Nuggets lost a game last night in a weird way, and there's a million articles about it. And then Jamal Murray tweeted this photo that you can't see if you're listening on the podcast. It says this angle, and there's a picture of Jamal Murray being covered by all of the Wizards, while almost all of Jamal Murray's teammates are alone on the right half of the court. It was maybe 2.9 seconds left in a game that the Nuggets were down 2. Predictably, this touches off the Twitter experts melting down about everything everyone could have done better, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But I'm going to summarize. Okay, actually, Judy, if you leave it right there, it says, "Oh, that's not a good one." But basically, a lot of the feedback was players have gotten stupid because of the three-pointer. And, you know, everyone knows in 8th grade that you take that ball to the rim, you know, or try to find someone cutting to the rim, etc. There's a million ways it could have done better. All true. However, I would just point out that the fact this isn't working like it did for you, random person on Twitter, when you were in 8th grade basketball, does not mean the NBA is stupider than it used to be. This Nuggets team that does this is just about to break a team record by averaging 117 points per 100 possessions. They're scoring better than any stupid team that you liked and understood better, right? Like, this is working very well. The other thing I would just point out really fast, my 3 seconds, is this is a team where Nikola Jokic makes a ton of the big decisions, and he doesn't make it down the court for plays like this. And I think it hurts their decision making a little bit, where Jamal Murray isn't like the man. He's the sometimes man, which maybe hurts things. Anyway, I'll stop talking now.
I mean,
we're going to pick that up.
We're going to pick that up. We are.
It wasn't Jamal Murray's problem. It wasn't Jamal Murray's mistake.
Michael Porter Jr. run to the rim. Damn it. Anyway.
Okay, here we go.
That's it. That's it. He was the first guy down the court. Go get it later.
We'll get to it later.
Sorry, Judy. Oh my God. Okay.
We're gonna get Judy needs to shoot lasers out of our computers at us. That would be helpful.
We all watch a ton of basketball. I watch a lot of Nets basketball and rewatch often in the morning, the game after. And I thought this is interesting. Bruce Brown's shot chart is quite interesting. If you look at it, a lot of points happening in that green area near the basket. And he's a 6'2" dude. Really interesting. I think it's really fun to sort of watch Bruce Brown on this Brooklyn Nets team.
As the owner of a Bruce Brown Top Shot moment.
as he is nominally in their small ball lineup, like he's their center, right? So he's often the one setting picks and rolling to the rim. But more importantly than that, I know Coach loves things like this. He understands what his role is on this team, right? When I'm on the court with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, when he comes back, this is how I do what I need to do. And not only does he know that it's his role, when he talks to us post game, he loves it. Like, he is all about like getting to the rim, and there might be a little bit of like a Napoleon thing in there. Like, I'm a little 6'2" guy and I'm getting all these shots at the rim, but he's loving it. And I think that's a way in which you see star players like Harden, Irving, and Durant working to get the best out of their teammates in ways that may not seem like that's the way that it would make sense for a 6'2" guy. But if you're winning, it works.
So I read something interesting the last couple of days where our military here in America has passed some new rules and regulations regarding appearance, basically allowing women to wear their hair like they want to, much more so than ever before. And I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'm of the age, as is our friend Randy. When we were coming of age, the military was a joke. The Vietnam War was a crazy disaster, and the way Hollywood reacted to that disaster was to make fun of military in movies that would talk about things like Stripes, which is the most famous one, and there were many others where they were made out to be idiots. And I've coached a number of players who ended up joining our armed forces after high school or college. And that is not what they've said. I think Colin Powell deserves a huge amount of thanks and praise for at least trying to understand that it's not about how much money you throw at something before you start talking about culture and accountability. And I love that our military now, much more so than society today, is aware that they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They're made of people. But as an intellectual property, they are working towards being more tolerant, not less tolerant, more understanding, not less understanding. And it is interesting that the party in America today that claims to be so patriotic is moving in the exact opposite direction as our armed forces. And I'm happy for that, for the armed forces anyway.
Not a lot of NBA analysis has missed the fact that Utah Jazz are good this year, and we've talked about it plenty here. But just look at the standings; it's a little bit of a weird thing. So the Jazz have won 81% of their games, and then there's everybody else. Like, the second best record in the NBA is the Clippers at 23-11, which are like practically with 11 losses. Between 11 and 13 losses are the next like 10 teams, down to the Spurs at 16-12. I could sort of summarize decades of looking at these things, but basically to be a contender in an 82-game season, you need to win 55 games. Below that, it's very unlikely you're going to contend. The Clippers are just barely at that percentage now. Sixers, Lakers, Nets, Suns, Bucks, Trailblazers, Spurs, all a little behind it. This is very unusual. We're halfway through a year, and really, objectively, there's one or maybe two teams with a regular season record good enough to contend. That'll change. Like we won't finish this way. It's been a weird season. People have been injured, blah, blah, blah. But it's just very weird that right now we really have, if you were to look at the record and just project on that, you'd say we have one contending team. Like this is a weird year. We should talk to Tom about this on Monday a little bit, I guess. But I thought I would note that like almost everyone you think is a contender is gonna have to get better to really win a championship.
No, we should touch on that again before we wrap. So a little bit of music joy for everybody. We were privy to this little drop tweet from my man Anderson .Paak last night. He and Bruno Mars have an album coming out, and they're going to call it Silk Sonic. And the reason why I'm so excited about this is that, yes, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak are like stars, like, right? Like if you are in the pop culture zeitgeist, you know who they are. But they are, and of course, Bootsy Collins on the assists, famous for his time with James Brown early on and then with P-Funk. These are some of the most talented musicians, like, I think that you would ever realize. And again, the way popular culture works, the gloss is what sells, right? Like not the musicianship. But Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars are both multi-instrumentalists and are so fucking good. This album with an assist from Bootsy Collins is going to be sonic bliss. Like that's and in what's going on with the pandemic and everything else in the world, we need some sonic bliss. We need some joy. So I'm looking forward to hearing some good tunes from these guys.
Silk Sonic.
In the 20 seconds left, Bootsy Collins, who was named after him, a famous basketball player from St. John's.
Oh, Bootsy Thornton.
One of my first ever clients. Yes, sir. Bootsy Thornton, who scored 57 in the Garden against Duke on national TV. That was
I remember that game.
I trained him like 2 months afterwards. All right, so I'm not a really negative person, and so I realized that my "fuck this guy" segment, which I did not create, someone else was doing it before me, and my wife and I do it all the time. That's not really who I am. Typically, I'm more pleasant. So I decided, you know what, I need to love up some women. There's some pretty amazing women out there helping our nation and our globe. And so there's a woman I follow named Dr. Phoebe Ohava, who is a radiologist, but she listened, maybe I'm bringing in, I don't know, to Dr. Michael Mina, talk about rapid testing. She is a mom, and so she is just the Boston Globe did an article on her recently, all over the idea of using rapid tests so we can bring children back in schools. If you follow what's going on around the world, the different variants are infecting kids in a far more alarming manner than before. And we know that's a big way the virus was spreading, even the older variants that are kind of being now defeated by the new one. And so she's really pushing this. I give her so much credit. She didn't have to do this. She's a radiologist. She tries to help women find out if they have breast cancer. And she's a mom, and yet she's spending extra time trying to help everyone else. I want everyone to follow her if you can. She only has like 57 followers now. So Dr. Phoebe Ohava is doing great stuff, and we should all pay attention to her.
David had already cited this New York Times article about kind of where they need to be 21 scientists about where we are with the coronavirus. And maybe I'm a little more desperate for good news than David is. To be honest, this show, like our brand is authentic. We're authentic, right? Like I've been on this show when my dad died. I was on the show when we found out we had the coronavirus here in the Abbott house. And today we're having our family had an incredible 100-year-old woman in our family died last night. And it's a sad day. So maybe I grappled a little further with needing some good news, but I'm just going to read this then. Is this it then? Is this the beginning of the end? After a year of being pummeled by grim statistics and scolded for wanting human contact, many Americans feel a long-promised deliverance at hand. Americans will win against the virus and regain many aspects of their pre-pandemic lives. Most scientists now believe. Of the 21 interviewed for this article, all were optimistic that the worst of the pandemic is past. This summer, they said, life may begin to seem normal again. It goes on to say a lot of things. And David's right. We can't not spike the football. We need to wear a mask. However, I was like, look, it's been a long time since I walked out in the driveway, got the New York Times, opened up and read something like that. Like, come on, this is a good day. Let's celebrate that little 2-paragraph section, which I isolated from the other bad parts of the article.
That's the coach of pretending to ignore all the turnovers just because they got a few extra offensive rebounds.
We had a great 13-2 run in the third quarter, David.
That's about right. Yeah, we're on a little run. I agree.
We don't want to be Leon Lett in the playoffs, right? Running back, you think you got the touchdown, you got the ball out, smack.
I think you're talking about football.
I did. That was a Cowboys game. Was it a Thanksgiving game?
Was it a playoff game? I thought it was
playoff game. Jeez.
I thought it was a playoff game.
Yeah, I haven't paid attention in a long time to that. Yeah, as a coach, I can't help but think. I mean, I don't like when these guys leave their starters in when there's 11 seconds left and they're up 38. All right, coach, you're going to win the game, but yeah, you don't sub out up 7 with 4 to play.
So you don't like Tibbs playing guys 40 minutes a night, is what you're saying.
Right. He's not alone. Like, no one's worse than Coach Krzyzewski. There were years where he would play like 6 dudes anyway, and every guy was an All-American or some sort, and he would play his starters, 35 minutes, no matter how bad they were winning. It was crazy.
Yeah. Can we return to? Well, we have lots to return to be honest, but
Jamal Murray.
Let's get back to Anderson .Paak. I freaking love that. No, I do love Anderson .Paak.
Anderson .Paak, so good.
But I really want to talk about this end of the Nuggets game.
Yeah.
I think everybody has views. Who wants to go first?
No, there's only one view. Sorry. One view.
All I'm going to say is, like, it seemed to me watching and rewatching it that if Porter Jr. ran to the rim, the game was going to be tied. Right. Or let's say he didn't. When Jamal Murray has the ball up, like the term they use in football, even though there was nobody near him, if Porter Jr. didn't think he was open, even though he fucking was, Murray could have thrown him open by throwing the ball towards the rim. Instinct would have kicked in. Oh, let me go get that and fucking dunk that thing. Like, it just seemed to me that was the way to go. And I don't know, for whatever reason, they didn't know time, score, what, I don't know. Something malfunctioned up here. There's no or. You got it right the first time. Michael Porter Jr. is 6'9". He can jump to 12 and a half, 13 feet. Right? Your point about the time, absolutely correct. It's hard in that situation, but it's going to take time to throw it across quarter of the rim. Not the same. You run to the rim, young man. You run to the rim. Period. Murray had an easy lob there for him. Game's tied for sure. There's plenty of time.
Okay, but if Jamal Murray's the point guard of the future, he knows this guy doesn't make quick reads very well, right? So, like, betting the farm on he's going to make a quick read with 2.9 seconds left is like, yeah, he fucked it up, right? Like, and I kind of knew he was going to fuck it up, right? Like, and part of the reason I knew that is because Jamal Murray always fucking jacks that. Like Michael Porter Jr. is not accurate in thinking he's getting that pass very often, right? Like, so if he's like, oh, what we're doing now is we're leaving space for Jamal Murray to be a ball hog, because he always is, right? Like, nope. like Jamal Murray only didn't shoot that for one reason, which is that he had just missed it, right? Like, the play before he missed it. So Jamal Murray had a pause button that he just discovered with 2.9 seconds left. So to me, if I play with Jamal Murray, I'm like, bro, we all know what's happening here. And you know what if you play with Steph, and you know what if you play with Dame, you know you play with Donovan Mitchell, right? Like the Nuggets have one of those guarded 3 players, right? He's taken this guarded 3, but he just didn't, right? He stopped dribbling, which was weird at that spot, and then he didn't shoot it, which was weird. And then we're all like, oh, Michael Porter Jr. I'm like, they have not run this team that way, right? Like we can go look it up, but I haven't looked it up. But like, I'm telling you, Michael Porter Jr. makes that cut and gets the pass approximately 4% of the time, right? Like, I know he was open, but like, if he paused, I think I know why, right? And also, by the way, if someone gets in the paint, like let's say it's Dame or Steph, right? Like, they want the tacit threat of the drive, right? There is still time to drive. But if you bring more people into the paint, right? Like, you might get yelled at for being there. Okay, David, I see you shaking your head. Lay it on me.
No. You speak beautifully, Henry. I was interested in every word you said. Just none of it was right. No, I'm kidding. Of course, what you're saying is right. That these guys do jack threes, all of that. This is a 2-on-1 break. Let's be fair to the players and all the players. If there was 5 minutes to go in the game, dunk every time for Michael Porter Jr. And Murray throws it every time. It's 2-on-1. You drew the one, so you throw it to the other guy. The problem is when you don't draw the one, now you got to keep dribbling and see. You got to be weaponized, think, score, ready to pass. The end of the game is what made everyone make instant decisions. Okay, Porter Jr. does not excel in that situation.
Right.
He's still young, and maybe Murray doesn't either. I honestly don't know Murray's situation as well as I do Michael Porter Jr.'s in terms of decision making. But it's 2-on-1, right? This is a mistake by Porter Jr. And by the way, if you are right that probably Murray was going to shoot it, well, you ain't going to tip it in from the 3-point line. You got to think tip anyway. You have the first guy down. If Campazzo was ahead of Mike, even though he's little, he should have gone to the rim. The first guy has to go to the rim. I tell you what, they're talking about it today. Like, you can't get all bent out of shape. Let's not be dramatic. Let's just talk. Guys, end of situation. We got a long rebound, whatever. Someone's going to get to the rim, and then we can fan out behind it. That's how you handle a 2-on-1 break.
But if this is a Chris Paul team, right? Like I mean, the right response was like, some sober person on Twitter was like, you learn from it and you move on, right? Like, this is correct. Like, you learn from this and you move on. There's no point in like everybody harping about the 1950s or whatever the hell was broken, right? Like no, you learn. However, I put it to you, if this was a Chris Paul team or any team with a very ball dominant point guard who ran the offense, like, we would have been through this 50 times in practice before now, right? Like, this is a little bit of a different team because of Jokic. I'm not blaming Jokic. Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Like, but it is a little bit different where like the source of gravity on your team wasn't in the play because he's a big 7-foot guy, right? He's back there. He's not part of this play, which just is a little bit of a switch, a mental switch from like, suddenly once Jamal Murray's taking off with the ball and we got Facundo Campazzo and now it's like, now we're trying to win a game with a slightly altered lineup without our MVP because our MVP is slow, right? Like,
hey, Jarod, did you see the post-game conference? Did MPJ think they were down 3? That's not a terrible sin to make, depending on what happened just prior to that. Because then Porter Jr. did the right thing.
I did not see the postgame, so I don't know what he said. I can look it up though. It's somewhere over here.
Yeah, you're down 3. You had to run behind 3, but their spacing was terrible. Someone's got to get to the rim on that. It's just, I don't agree with any of. I mean, these players are incredibly fundamentally sound. They score on 2-on-1 breaks better now than ever before in the history of the game because half the league can jump to 12 feet, 11 and a half feet. Right. It's impossible to guard those guys 2-on-1. They just don't lob to almost anybody. They screwed up there. They'll learn from it. They won't do it again.
Well, also they've broken I mean, tell me if I'm right, David, but like, okay, when I was in 8th grade, there were really clear rules about where to go on the break. It was so basic, but it's not as simple anymore because a lot of people are running to the 3-point line on the break, right? Like, it is. So like, it is actually, I'm sure that all of these players have been loudly instructed and taught to override their 8th grade impulses with, there are moments now where we want you to run to the 3-point line, right? Like the break isn't quite as simple as it used to be, right? Because it used to be
way more complex.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Jarod.
I was going to say the other piece of it too. It seems like it not only is it different now because players are running out to the 3-point line in that situation, particularly, and I'm not picking on MPJ because I love MPJ. Like, young players, like, be aware, like, not just of what you have to do, but where are your teammates in this scenario, right? Like, that's the other part of it. Like, know where everybody is so that you ultimately make the right decision. It just seemed like in that moment, I don't know, I'm going to go over here. It's like, okay, but what's this guy doing? What's that guy doing? Like, know where everybody is. There's already 2 people over here. Like, to your point, coach, go to the rim. Like, nobody's there. Go to that area. So if a shot goes up, there's a chance.
There was one other little sad moment for me, which was like, okay, Jamal Murray picks up his dribble, and then he has a moment of mourning, right? He's like, oh, everybody stayed over there, bummer, right? He takes a pause, but then he's like, let me fire a pretty slow pass to maybe second, third best 3-point shooter here, right? Like,
yeah, he's a bad shooter.
Yeah.
So 2 things. I believe, I don't know if we can see it again, that Michael Porter Jr. after the play taps his chest saying,
"Oh, interesting."
Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he knows he fucked up. But this is the easiest thing to say. Everyone has to make every mistake. Everyone has to make every mistake. I'm speaking as a father. As I said to my children, I've said to every player I've ever coached at every level, You'll make every mistake that you have to make, no matter how many times you learned it in the previous level, you'll make it again. The idea is not to keep making it at this next level you're at, but this is what we do. You may have learned it in 6th grade. I've seen Chris Paul make some of the dumbest turnovers that you would bench your middle school player for. And he's one of the greatest point guards of all time. And maybe the greatest under 6'2", right? But he's human, he's not a machine. They make mistakes. You just don't want to make many of them. I don't think MPJ has ever been in that situation. Down 2, fast break, probably should run to the rim. Normally teams are back. Right? You don't see a lot of those runouts like that, really, at any level. You normally have balance coming back when it's the turnover. This wasn't a turnover, this was a rebound. And so his brain was clicking differently. You'll learn from it. Like I like what Henry said. Let's not talk about 1950s. People make mistakes, let's learn from it. That's what you have to do. He does it again, we're gonna have some fun with it because you can't do it twice. You can't score a 2-on-1 break twice. But yeah, watch the play. I think he taps his chest like, oh yeah, I screwed up on that one, which I'm glad he recognized it. That's progress right there.
But David, you don't think it was weird that Jamal picked up his dribble there?
No, 2 guys were on him. And I tell you what you don't do is you don't keep dribbling into traffic when you know a guy's got a dunk. I think what fucked him up is nobody ran to the rim. That's an automatic right there. Yeah, by picking up his dribble, you're drawing attention because of what you just said, Henry. In fact, we drill this all the time. We drill shooting that 3 in transition and then hezzy attack. And I think he might have thought about hezzy attack, but he wasn't sure about the clock, and the pass for the layup is much faster than the drive. I did not see any mistake Jamal Murray made there. To me, it was all MPJ. And I don't know why Composite was even in the game. I didn't see the context prior to that. I don't know that he's any kind of elite defender. Speaking of that, did you see what he said after the game, guys, about NBA defense?
Who? Composite?
Oh, yeah.
No what?
Oh, this is good. Well, Luka Doncic is famous as saying it's easier to score in the NBA than it was in Europe. And the reason is because, there's not 18 people in the lane all the time, right? Campazzo said, I always thought they didn't play defense in the NBA. Oh, they play defense in the NBA. Yes, there's more space inside, but these guys are long and quick and athletic, and they really try. And Thorpe Messina said that years ago. He wrote a great blog when he was the assistant for the Spurs. And for people who don't know, Coach Messina, one of the greatest basketball minds. He's a tremendous coach. He's in Europe now. I thought he might take over Pop one day, but he's in Europe. And he had a blog, and he wrote the idea that they don't play defense in this league is nonsensical. Like, oh my goodness, do they play defense? Yes, players take plays off like James Harden. They do in Europe too, by the way, because you have more help around you, and because that guys are always right there. The NBA's got a bunch of guys that play defense hard all the time.
Judy, can you play the clip again of the play from the Nuggets game?
Yeah, watch MPJ. What are you gonna shoot? You guys get something else, Rod?
Which one was it?
I think we only have the still image that Jamal Murray.
Oh, I thought you
It's
had the
still.
video. Oh, I thought you had the video. Okay, never mind.
Well, when one of us start talking again, Rod, you can find it and play it.
Yeah, I'll look.
Okay, whatever.
David, your little talk you just gave might be a nice segue to the story you just published about your mid-season defensive awards.
Oh yeah. What'd you like about it?
Actually, we joke. There's a young person in my family who I won't embarrass by naming who once said to a friend of ours, "What else nice do you have to say about me?"
No. I didn't know. Not what I like about it. What did you catch? Not Bobby Knight. Not the Bobby Knight thing.
So there's a lot going on in this story, which I love. But I think maybe my favorite thing is the Phoenix Suns defense. Yeah. You would give Monty the Coach of the Year award if there's an award to give out right now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why?
Yeah, when I watched the Suns play, and the Knicks are right there too. The Suns, they've made a decision that they are the Pacers of the West. They are guarding people hard, and they are making passes tough. You just can't throw the ball around against them. They are trying to take stuff away. And there's one play I put in here that the Sixers are trying to post up Joel Embiid, and Dario Saric is clearly told the front Embiid in the low post.
You could do it if you hold it right there. Here you go.
Yeah. And so what you'll see on the weak side, Cam Johnson does what we call, he's protecting the backside of Embiid. If you keep watching it, just let it run. As Saric gets in front of Embiid, Johnson is protecting him on the lob. And then Saric repositions behind him when Korkmaz throws it back up top to Tyrese Maxey. And then Johnson recovers to his guy, Matisse Thybulle, who should have gone to the corner. But if you look on this video, he doesn't. He kind of stays not in the dunk spot so much as the other block. And that allows Johnson to guard two people in one spot, more or less. So the second time they thought they tried to close on Embiid, Saric knows he's got protection on the lob. So he's like, oh, no, you don't. And he jumps in front and he gets a steal, 1 of 4 that game. And that play in and of itself wasn't the greatest play I've seen. It was representative of how I think the Suns are defending. They're connected. They all know what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone knows their role. They've bought in. Chris Paul is not having a great year defensively. It hasn't mattered. Devin Booker is not a great defensive player. In the aggregate, they're, I think, number 4 in the league right now.
And Dario Saric is like in limited minutes, but Dario Saric is killing it.
Amazing. Yeah, Saric has really proven to be a great defensive player, which is interesting too. People love to trash the Europeans. Man, people can play defense from anywhere, right? They play defense in Alaska. They play defense in Kazakhstan. If you're a really good player, you're guarding people, okay? Doesn't matter where you're from. You got to want to do it. I give Monty great credit for getting them to understand that we need to win on this end. And they play with purpose. The same with the Knicks. Those teams are really playing with purpose on defense. They didn't used to. At least, to my eyes, they didn't. And so I wish we had a better way to show the video because there's a lot of cool things happening. There's so much happening on any one possession that almost nobody can see. Obviously, a coach can see it. And we may have to watch it twice. But it's hard to play good defense, guys. There's people shooting from 26 feet. I told Henry, Jarod, did you see Gallinari's 2 threes from the logo the other day?
Mm-hmm.
He ain't 6'2" Damian Lillard. That 6'10" Danilo Gallinari shooting from 30 feet. So it's hard to guard all these guys who also can dribble and shoot and pass from everywhere. How do you do it? You connect each other. Everyone knows their role. Everyone's buying in and taking personal accountability, but also it's not about me stopping you. It's about us stopping them. And the teams that have done a good job, like Utah, like Phoenix, like the Knicks, are much improved because of it.
That's the connectivity that you always talk about, right? And defenses being on a string, because what, as you said, makes it so difficult with the advent of the three. Not only are you guarding, you have to guard in space, right? And that's what makes it even more challenging. If it's more compact, I know, all right, my teammate's like half a foot away from me. Now I'm like on island sometimes. It's like, shit, right? I really got to make sure I'm sound fundamentally. My hips aren't open. I'm not, because all these guys need are like a little bit of space and you're cooked.
Jarod, do you have a defender that you particularly enjoy watching?
I like Matisse Thybulle a lot.
Yeah,
He's one of my favorites. I mean, I liked him coming out of college, coming out of Washington. I love watching. I like watching Philly play defense. I love watching Ben Simmons guard. There's so many really good defenders in the league. And to your point, Saric, limited minutes, leading in defensive plus minus.
Hey, you all need to watch Larry Nance Jr. This is going to sound stupid, and you're not synergy probably, but the next time the Cavs play on national TV, which might be 2023, if they still employ him, watch that guy off the ball. He was my pick for off the ball defensive player of the year. His metrics are great, but I did not know how he was doing so well in steals. He's top whatever in steals, top 3, top 4, because he's not so quick. He's not so long, right? I don't know how he was so good. He's like the genius linebacker who is reading the quarterback's eyes, and sometimes it's stunning. The offensive players throw the ball right to him. He's just in the perfect spot. That's why I gave him the award. He's exactly where he's supposed to be, and they just don't see him, and they throw it like the linebacker. How many times I watch football game? I'm like, how did the quarterback not see that guy, right? I play quarterback and linebacker. I learned how to hide on defense from playing quarterback on offense. I learned how to hide behind people and then jump the route. And Larry Nance he's the best in the league at it. He's incredible.
Well, speaking of linebacking and jumping the route. Of course, you have to love watching Draymond play defense, right? Just like when he is like fully locked in, how he blows up every team's action when it's coming down, right? And it's just like that's always fun to watch, right? Like a guy who just knows what the offense is supposed to be doing and literally is like, nope, not doing that today, right? Like it's cool watching that as well.
There's something else too. Henry asked me yesterday, I named Mike Conley my most improved individual defender. Well, I didn't name him that. The metrics, we had Taylor from Dunks and Threes give us the top 30 most improved guys. Conley was number 1. And so that's why he got the award. He deserved it. But Henry said, well, why? What's better? So I had talked to Jazz players in the past about this, is why he was so bad last year. And the answer is, and this is again going to how fans just won't see this stuff, the way the Grizzlies defended the ball on ball screens is they would have Gasol not typically drop back. He would be up, which means the screener is got to account for setting the screen, but also what's my guy doing? And Mike Conley knew he had help with Gasol up. And that's not how Utah did it last year. Gobert stayed back almost all the time. And that meant Conley, like you said, Jarod, was on an island by himself. And the quote that I got last year about it was, and Mike is getting obliterated by the screen. and it's an adjustment. So the Jazz might run the most complex offense in the league. They run a lot of stuff. To the opposite of the Rockets under D'Antoni. And so that plus getting blown up on defense all the time, and all of a sudden he could have written the Memphis playbook, and all of a sudden now he's the new guy. It fucked him up because Conley was always a good defensive player, even though he's small and slight. And now he knows what he's doing. And the Jazz, and I wrote this, the Jazz are starting to switch more. Rudy Gobert's guarding guards sometimes. It's gotten Mike much more comfortable. It's a joke that he's not an all-star. It's just a lot of guys in the West are good, but he's having a phenomenal season.
What are they gonna do in the playoffs, you think? Will Rudy be like guarding little guys, switching and playing up more?
I mean, it's a guess, but I think yes. Rudy wants it. He is a guy. I wrote this about when I wrote about Rudy as right now the Defensive Player of the Year. He's back to taking great pride. The quote of the line I used is, when he was first in the summer league, the very first time I saw him, it looked like he thought he was going to dock some pay if he allowed a bucket in the paint. He's just the eager 21-year-old, right? He looks that way now. Watch him in a game. He gets angry if they call a foul on him. He doesn't foul. He gets angry. So does most of the league. But when guys score, he gets upset, right? Remember that video we showed like a year ago, Henry, almost?
Of course, I remember everything.
No, of the young French kid.
Yeah, hell yeah, I remember that.
Remember, I met Rudy with Doug and he got mad? Rudy is that way now.
Yeah.
And so I think he likes having a guards and wings sometimes. And he's more mobile than he ever has been before. He's not the most mobile guy. He's gigantically tall. But I think that the Jazz are not just playing vanilla defense well. I think they're mixing things up. Thibodeau's defenses tend to be more vanilla. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. They really execute their game plan. They're the Packers power sweep. You know what's coming, deal with it. The Jazz are more pragmatic than that. They also can be. They're a bunch of veteran dudes with Rudy behind them. Or Derek Favors, who's solid, not great, but solid. Yeah, they're the Jazz have to your point, Henry, when you did the standings, I had two thoughts. One is the Jazz might be the healthiest of those teams.
For sure.
Only missed 6 games. Okay, that's something. But the other part is they're not one of these teams that have a dynamic duo. They got a bunch of guys. So who's better able to deal with an injury, the loaded team or the team that dynamic duo and one goes down? To me, it's the loaded team. And so the Lakers have 2 guys out with AD and Schroeder.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the deeper team has the advantage over the course of a season that way.
The Jazz will be interesting, Henry. And, we've talked about, they're clearly by every metric the best team in the league, right? Rudy Gobert, and what makes them different than other iterations of the best team in the league is that Rudy Gobert is the best player on this team, right? Someone who doesn't do what our eyeballs like, which is score the basketball from the wing, shoot threes, and do all that stuff, right? But to your point, everything he does on the other side of the ball, which is half of the game, is extremely valuable because now you have possessions where you're not scoring. And That's the whole point. Like, it's to score points. Well, if you ain't, you're losing, right? I think to coach's point also, they haven't had much injuries. Yes, Conley did miss 6 games. No COVID safety protocols for them either, right? So that's the other thing. So and we talk about this all the time, continuity. This is basically the same team, right? That they've had for quite some time. Even with bringing Favors back in, he's been in that system before, right? So everybody knows what they're supposed to do. I think for everybody else, what it comes down to is like in the postseason, right? Like, does that same level of play continue? Coach mentioned Jordan Clarkson. Is he still shooting 40 whatever the hell percent from 3, right? Is, as much as we love Donovan Mitchell, like, is he efficient shooting the ball, or is he taking 25 shots to score 25 points, right? Like, what are those things happening for them come the postseason? But I love Utah. I think what's gonna matter for them is seeding. And if they're first the whole way through, not having to play both LA teams and or Denver, that's a good thing, right? Like, because going to the finals, as Henry always says, is lottery, right? 2 out of 30 teams go. So you want to avoid having to play as many good teams as possible. That's to get there.
Right.
The most worrisome one is, we all know that LeBron's going to be there, right? Like, but boy, this is not like, this is a little worrisome, right? They're 22-11, and LeBron's been playing really hard and looks tired for one of the first times in his life.
No, Henry, he's not tired. He said it. I'm not tired. I'm fine.
I know he's not tired. Of course he's not tired. But, and this Anthony Davis injury is worrisome. This is kind of like crap, right? Like, it would be different if they were the 26-16. They'd be like, okay, well, we'll find 10 games off for LeBron. We'll find 10 games off. But now it's like, this is not great, right? This has not been a great first half.
Hey, I wanted Henry taught me something really cool yesterday. So we put up this chart of these top 30 players. And one of the things that jumped out at me when I looked at, because I didn't know the numbers. I knew a couple guys only. I knew Conley. That's obvious, because he's one of the top guys in the league. The number of lottery picks that are in this top 30 really intrigued me. And Henry, I was going to bold. I actually did it at first. I bolded all the lottery pick names. And Henry said the table is supposed to just tell one story, not two. It's a genius thing. So I quickly changed it. But we can talk about it.
Yeah, I do want to know what I know you got something cooking in there that I want.
Yeah,
why are there so many lottery picks?
I just love the we too often I think feel like, okay, if they're not the superstar, they're the ones that really have to improve their defense. No, if it's half the game, which we all acknowledge that it is, well, then everyone needs to get better defense, no matter where you were drafted, how much money you're making. I think Conley's getting paid more than anyone. He's the richest contract, or maybe not anymore. But at one point, he was the highest paid guy in the league, right? Conley is on the list. He was a number 3 pick. DeAndre Hunter is on the list. Oladipo is on the list. Jeff Teague's on the list. Andrew Wiggins, former one, on the list, number 8 overall and number 9 overall and most improved. By the way, the Warriors, I think, are number 3 in defense now.
It's a big deal, yeah.
I have to write about that coming up. That's amazing. Kemba Walker's on the list. RJ Barrett's on the list. Cam Johnson. These guys are lottery picks, right? Austin Rivers, Frank Kaminsky, Bradley Beal. I'm still going. De'Aaron Fox, Kelly Oubre. Was he a lottery pick? I think he was with the Wizards.
Maybe.
I'm quite sure Derrick Rose is number 1 overall. He's on the list. Harrison Barnes is on the list, right? Miles Turner, I think, was a late lottery pick. CJ McCollum, definitely a lottery pick. Ben McLemore, definitely a lottery pick. And Luka Doncic was 37th on the list. I mean, come on now.
Why is that what's happening?
Well, what's happening is you got to fucking play some defense to win some games. So, and here's the other thing.
That wasn't true last year? Like, why didn't you have to
always
play
been
fucking defense last year? Like,
this is what I'm getting at. If you are the defensive coordinator and you know you've got to have De'Aaron Fox on your lineup, right? I better make sure I come up with a defensive strategy that he can execute better than he did last year. At the same time, you hold them more accountable and say to someone like Fox, who has really exploded as a player this year, you can't just score. You're not James Harden. Like, he's the only guy. So stop trying to be James Harden. You can't be him. You've got to bring it on both ends. This is where I feel like the Jazz have some elasticity, even though they're the best team in the league now. Donovan Mitchell is okay on defense. He can get better, right? That's a scary thought. He can get better because now all of their starters can play on defense.
Well, and it makes this is a very hard thing to detect but it makes a huge difference to winning. So like, I'm just going to pick on Seth Curry, who was a terrible defender a year ago and is like a tiny smidge below average this year. Huge difference, right? Like when he's where he is now, he can be on the floor when your team wins a championship, and very hard last year, right? Same thing with actually CJ McCollum. I mean, this is a big deal. Like he was, you know, bad, and now he's, you know, regular, a little better than regular. Huge difference for your team's capabilities with him on the court, right? I think these like, there used to be this thing in plus minus with like bad backup, where basically some guys would have a great plus minus because when they went out, someone terrible came in, right? This is a little bit of that same factor where it's like, you just can't, your team can't play terrible people and be good, right? So what we're seeing here, these players on this list, some of them, Derrick Rose, De'Aaron Fox, Bradley Beal, RJ Barrett, they were legit terrible last year, and now they're solid. Take it. Like it's that improvement means everybody as much to your team as if they went from being average to the best in the league. Like it helps you win just as much.
We should address very quickly, since we were talking Jazz, the Dennis Lindsey story.
Yeah.
Anyone have any insight there at all? I have a little bit, but I don't know if you guys have anything.
I only read a quick thing of what allegedly happened. Like I don't have much to offer beyond that.
I spoke to a Jazz player about it, and he doesn't believe. How do you know what he said? He does not. This is a player. This is well, he's a black player who does not feel at all that Dennis Lindsey feels or acts as a racist. Doesn't, and I said to the player, doesn't mean he didn't say something that can be construed as racist. But this guy feels like, and he feels like the team is get along. He actually thinks there's something going down to try to bring the Jazz down. Like this is being planted by someone else. I don't necessarily feel that way, but he does. But no, he had Dennis's back, and is pissed that this is going on right now because all they want to do is win games right now. It's fun to be the Jazz when you're winning all these games. Now it's not so fun. And I think they like Dennis. I don't know Dennis at all, but I think they like it.
The one thing I'll say, Henry, really quick is part of it with the Jazz is guilt by geographic location, right? Like we all know that Salt Lake City has, for if you ask any NBA player, what's the city that you've gone to, Salt Lake City is always in the top one or two of places where they've heard the most nastiest things racially motivated said towards them, right? By fans and whatever, and by that environment. So I think it's also easy to be like, oh, Jazz must be true. Like, but we don't actually know.
He's not from Salt Lake City.
Agreed.
Oh, I know. I should have asked that. I don't know that he's from there. He took a job there. I don't know that he's from there or not.
Who, Dennis Lindsey?
Yeah.
He's from Houston.
He was born and raised in Houston?
I or at least spend most of his life in Houston for sure.
That isn't any better necessarily. Although it's a multicultural city. Yeah. But yeah, he's not from Salt Lake City. But yes, what Jarod said is right about the city in general, for sure.
I put it to you that this is a story that 5 years ago would not have been an ESPN news story like the one we just showed. But we're in an improved world, right? But the problem is now, like, this is a story about like a sentence, right? Which is like a lot of incriminating actions, right? Like either it happened or it didn't, and general opinions have no bearing on that, right? Like this was like a 4-second activity in a meeting that either did or didn't happen. If it did happen, I want to have no part as a journalist in pretending it didn't happen. You know what I mean? And if it didn't happen, I want to have no part in pretending it did happen, right? Like what the city's generally like, or what this player's like doesn't matter for shit. It is of zero value to me. Like this either happened or didn't, and it's very tricky. Like this is like every Me Too story, right? Is the same model, right? It's very tricky, and we did a bad thing, which we used to just say, oh, can't say, so we'll say nothing, right? Which is protects the perpetrator, right? That was the system we had. We don't have the system anymore. Now we're in this other thing, but it's like, whoo, like, you know, someone who wasn't there feels like it probably didn't happen. Like, nope, doesn't do anything for me. Like it happened or it didn't, and that person does not know. And to me, I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like
my point of bringing that up, Henry, about Utah was to agree with your point that you just made.
Right.
That it's irrelevant that it's Utah. Like, yes, we know whatever. Like this thing is either did or didn't. And I don't know how we find out. Apparently, I read somewhere that like the notes are put into some system, and if it was said, you would know if you went in behind and you altered it. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I was like, what? That sounds crazy to me.
This doesn't sound like the alleged statement doesn't sound like the kind of thing you would write into the system. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's my point. I was like, if I said that, I wouldn't write it down. What do I?
Yeah. Bummer. Something's up though. I mean, it's weird. Like this is a weird, like, I don't know. Does anybody know Elijah Millsap? You've never worked with him or anything?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, he's Paul Millsap's brother, right? Yeah, I wouldn't want to say I think he's a liar without.
Well, where is he now?
We asked a million questions about it now.
Where is he? Jarod, where's Elijah playing now?
I don't think he's playing the league anymore.
No, he's not. I don't know if he was in Europe.
Okay, we got the Google. I guess we could probably look it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
We got the Google.
Actually, Devin's probably going to tell us in a second. Devin's always when I try to look something up, Devin always beats me to
it. Yeah,
Devin, we're just no pressure, Devin, but we need to know where Elijah Millsap's what he's doing right now.
What's he doing these days?
All right. Did you guys see the Zion Giannis battle?
Yeah.
No.
Two pretty damn impressive players. So 2018 was second division Spain, which is not such a great league. So Judy, that very last tweet this is where I told Henry that Zion would average 20 plus. When I saw Zion play in college after a couple of games, I told Henry, this guy's going to score a ton. It's because of this play right here. He starts out on the perimeter against Giannis and then just takes him off the dribble and then is strong enough and athletic enough and long enough to finish over him in traffic. Like that is what he was doing in college that really caught my eye. It's the skill with the ball that's so impressive. And Stan's done a good job. He's done some things that haven't been so good, but he is featuring Zion outside, and then he's attacking, and nobody can guard him. Like Giannis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Giannis said you don't just post those guys up; you let him attack in the perimeter. He's so quick and he's so skilled, and he can put that body on you, and there's nothing you can do.
I feel like Zion right now on offense is like Ben Simmons on defense. Like they both went into some kind of next level, like when the video game player starts to glow kind of mode, right?
He's something. Yeah, they might do some trades because they want to be better. They're not going to trade him.
Just checking the most improved defender list though. Ooh, I didn't see Zion anywhere on there.
I wonder if he didn't play enough minutes last year, maybe.
He also didn't improve.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see. He is number one in amount of threes he's contested, which was surprising to me because I've seen him be really lazy on a lot of them. What I think is really the case is he's not helping off enough. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to recover back to a guy if you're not helping to begin with. They are a bottom 2 or bottom 3 defensive team. I mean, they're 28. That's a surprise.
They're real bad.
Yeah, but that's going to take some time to reshape the roster. But Bledsoe's on my list. He's the most disappointing defender. He's been a good defender. 2 years ago, he was in the 88th percentile for the Bucks. Last year was 70th percentile. This year, he's like 6th percentile for a coach that really values defense too. It just tells me something. Maybe his heart's not into it, which would be surprising. Although he ain't playing for a championship there. He was in Milwaukee, so that might have something to do with it. Seriously.
What do you
never
see?
know what motivates guys.
Like when you watch him play, what do you see Bledsoe doing? Like is something?
Yeah, I have not. The Pelicans to get to the level I'm going to watch you a bunch. You have to raise your game a little bit. That was hard there. I like to watch Zion clips. I was watching them early this year. I love Brandon Ingram too, but and Steven Adams at the 5 is a weird fit for me with Zion at the 4. Knowing Zion's going to go to the rim, I don't love that at all.
Yeah.
David Griffin got there a year ago. It's gonna, he's got to reshape the roster some. Stan's a good defensive coach, but maybe not as good as he used to be. He used to be great. The game has changed. You may have to adjust some things with it, but it ain't working for me.
I had a question actually, Coach. Like, how much of the Celtics have you watched this season?
I just watched them the other day a little. I've watched them a little bit, yeah.
what, to your trained basketball eye, what is going on with them? Besides, of course, Smart not being there, and
Well, that's a big thing, right? I think he's, every team needs the guy that brings all the energy, no matter what time and score is, and opponents. Smart is, we use the term glue guy. It's more than that. It's also the energizer guy too. And he's a good basketball player. He's not just this, tough, rugged guy. He's a good player.
Oh, he's got that Kyle Lowry brain. Yeah.
He does, for sure.
Yeah.
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
With the same Lowry toughness and a better body. Quicker, faster, stronger, taller body. Kemba's been up and down to me. Jalen and Tatum have been tremendous. They both have been very good offensively. I feel like there's a lack of charisma on their team when I watch them play, a lack of urgency. I've read the other day that Brad may be on the hot seat, which would be, if I'm Brad Stevens, I wouldn't care because someone's going to hire you in 8 seconds for sure. But that's not working. Like that, you have to have like I talked about Phoenix, that ain't happening in Boston. You can't watch the Suns, well, most games, and not think that you're just going to have an easy go of it. No, they're going to get after you. And I don't see that in Boston right now. I just don't. And I thought I would, and I haven't seen it. What about you? What do you see?
All the similar things that you said. And, Danny Ainge came out and said, obviously that Brad's not on the hot seat. I mean, dude's got he's got 7 or 8 years left on that deal, and some crazy amount of money attached to it. So unless they want to pay him not to coach and then pay somebody else,
right,
not going anywhere. I think, look, some of this is roster construction, right? And Danny's got to get some blame for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Amass picks, and it's like, and it's so funny. Like, Ainge is the only GM you hear about all these almost trades that were supposed to happen that never actually happened. It's like, well, why didn't they happen? Like, what's going on? Like, why don't you have a better big man? Why do you think Tristan Thompson was the answer? Like,
right.
What is going on with you and all these, Danny's so smart, and I'm like, is he? Like, what are you actually doing this? I think he definitely gets some fault. I figured that Tatum and Brown, even with Kemba being up and down and smart, I was like, look, you got 2 studs that are, 21? Not barely, that are that good. I'm like, that's got to be good enough to carry you, but it hasn't been good enough.
Wait, you guys seem a little confused. Did you not hear Wick Grousbeck say it's Kyrie Irving's fault?
I did see Wick say that.
So there's your answer.
Kyrie is loving life right now.
Oh man, Wick Henry, who as in my 7 degrees of billionaire separation, I'm also tangentially connected to Wick Grousbeck.
Wait, what? Let's talk more about Wick Grousbeck. What are you telling me?
I'm also tangentially connected to Wick. So his daughter went to Stanford. She worked at a firm I used to work. Anyway, it's a long story, but more of the capitalist machine, interwebs.
I gather, I don't understand why, but apparently Irving Grousbeck, Wick's dad, is the money behind the Celtics purchase, but is not commonly listed as an owner of the Celtics, which is so weird. What's going on? Why would you do that? That's a weird thing.
Shade.
Who are the Nets playing this weekend? Because the Jazz, who are still the hottest team
tomorrow night.
Who do they play?
Mavericks tomorrow night. ABC primetime game. All the bells and whistles.
Okay.
The Jazz play in Orlando and Miami. Miami then Orlando. If they lose 1 or 2, the Nets will be the hottest team now.
Jim Dillon also, in Spanish, they say, hijo de papi. All right. We are just about out of time. Any final words of wisdom before we go off for our weekend of just enjoying life in our homes?
Yes, don't spike the ball and call a touchdown yet. Mask up, stay distance, double mask if you can.
Triple.
Keep kids at home as much as you can. Be smart. Don't party inside. We're not through this thing yet.
Support, the Alabama Amazon workers who are looking to unionize. Guys, down with the capitalist machine.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, David. Thank you, John.
Stay safe, everyone.